the ones present on stage to also be our panelists, who are our panelists up here on stage, to please take your seat. And let's dive deeper. Thank you Ms. Rai for joining us. And now it's time to have some insights from this groundbreaking initiative. And I request Ms. Lalitha, CEO BHIM, to steer this insightful conversation on the key findings, what worked and what didn't, and how fintechs can efficiently tap into women's market. If you're uncertain about where to start, where you are at the right place. So the ones here at the corners, we have some spaces, some seats available in between.
Is this topic even relevant? As you get into the details of the report, which was an eye-opener for me, you do realize that there's a lot to do in this segment, and there is genuinely a gap between the usage that men do and the usage that women are accessing as far as this railroad is concerned. Now, why is digital payment access important for women? Because it's just a start point, right? Once they get into a digital payment ecosystem and they leave a footprint of digital, it becomes extremely important because once you do a digital payment and you leave a footprint, when you read the report, you will find a lot of cohorts and specific use cases or needs of those cohorts. But before we get into the cohorts, since all of them on this panel with me have walked the path, met people, understood the various behaviors and sentiments of this group of women, which comprise of homemakers, they could be entrepreneurs, they could be freelancers, and they could also be working women, in tier 2, tier 3 locations. So I just wanted to go around and understand from them what is their summary of the potential which lies in this segment. Over to you, Dilip, first.
Thank you, Lalita. When you say potential, I would say that it's just amazing. I would, we at Spice Money work with women in rural India. And I'm just amazed to see the aspiration, the excitement that women have when it comes to new things. I think the friction points or some of the concerns that I see when it comes to digital payments and digital banking, I would put them in 4 buckets. One is psychological. I think when I think about psychological, I see this both with bank accounts and cash, right? For example, with bank accounts, there is a fear that women have when it comes to fraud. There's a fear that they have when it comes to hidden charges in bank accounts. It's maybe linked to education, which is also another friction point. And then there is, psychological fear about even safety of cash. So actually, there are multiple friction points that we need to solve for, but the potential is amazing because there's aspiration. Smartphones are reaching the woman. In villages, there's always a lot of women who are getting educated and comfortable with using the smartphone, and they're learning from each other. And so I think the opportunity is amazing. It was amazing to see a number of 200 million come up in the report. And I think, we're seeing more and more women wanting to be part of the formal financial economy. And I'd just like to conclude on the aspect of opportunity that we talk about self-serve and assist. Women have figured out self-help. And self-help groups are amazingly ubiquitous in India, and I've yet to come across a woman in rural India who's not part of a self-help group. So they found their own model of self-serve through self-help. So that's the biggest opportunity that I see with women in rural India.
Hi. So I'm Bipin. I'm founder and CEO of MobiKwik. We provide an app which is used for digital payments for the left hand side of the country, 140 million users. And we also help in providing digital loans, help in digital savings through different kind of digital kind of mechanisms, whether it is gold or mutual funds or other kind of saving instruments. And in our experience, the story of digital payments and digital finance and adoption of sort of by women is actually something that as a country there's a lot to be done there. Because if you see the internet adoption in India, technology adoption in India is still highly biased towards men. So it's 80% plus usages by men only of any metric, e-commerce, any particular usage, any internet service in the and I think that probably reflects in digital payments as well. I think digital payments, specifically UPI and other aspects of digital finance, would be great tools for empowering they can build new businesses, which many of the micro entrepreneurs, whether they are small merchants, shopkeepers, or running some kind of home business, they can do. At the same time, they can gain more confidence in doing not just payments, but also using the tools of finance, which are so critical for basically moving forward in life. And I think that's where we have been associated in this project. And we believe that there is a lot that needs to be done. And also, there is a lot that specifically should be done to help women gain more confidence in using the right digital tools, especially apps like ours, because really the adoption is very easy.
Just talk specifically about the women business owners. There's roughly 16 million small business owners in India, and primarily 95% of them are micro business owners, like 1% of the maximum people working in India. 20% of the entire MSME market is led by women. These women face a very, very different challenge with the men. Primarily comes from basically the fear of losing their
Can't hear you.
Can everyone go at the back as well? Okay, let's try this one. Can everyone hear now? Okay, awesome. I think the segment actually has a very different problem than the men in this segment because of the social issues and the biases that these women face. They have a fear of losing out the money, as I think Bipin was calling out the bank account versus cash, right? They do not have the confidence in the digital ecosystem yet. But there are three important things that can get them onboarded, which is Jan Dhan account, credit to our government. Second, they have mobile, and I'm specifically talking about merchant ecosystem here. And then third, they have Aadhaar. So all the three, which can actually plug them into a digital ecosystem, they have. But they have the fear of fraud. They have the, I would say, a little bit of a mental or psychological one that I think Dilip was talking about, is basically they don't feel themselves empowered or literate enough about finances, how to manage it and how to deal with all of that. Right? For this cohort, you cannot attack with the same strategy as you're going to do with men. You have to understand the sensitivities around this sector and curate the path, get them onboarded, differently, keeping the sensitivities around them in mind. You just cannot rush them into, adoption of digital ecosystem. You just can't get them through traditional mechanisms of sending an agent and getting them onboarded, because they will not. And when PhonePe participated in the pilots, I think we have identified a lot of these issues where women were not comfortable talking to agents, they were giving wrong information, their accounts were inactive. So the comfort level of the sector has to be kept in mind in two sectors: designing the product for them and the delivery mode of that product for them. From PhonePe standpoint, and I think from an India standpoint, getting this segment financially included and from an Indian economic growth standpoint is extremely critical and important, and the ecosystem has to work to get this segment onboarded. Yeah.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Good morning, everyone. It really is a culmination of almost a year's effort, and kudos to NPCI really for steering, and providing the direction in terms of ensuring that when we're talking about payments, we need to call out a UPI for her, because the fact is that the women oftentimes are not comfortable actually using the digital payment system. So the operating hypothesis for us really, when we started working on the report along with NPCI, was that there are two primary factors which actually go into deciding whether a woman is comfortable in using a digital payment system. And one, of course, is her digital financial capability, and the second is her motivation level. When I say digital financial capability, it's not just talking about the skills and the knowledge, but equally about her attitude. Is she comfortable, using a digital, means to participate in the financial system? And of course, motivation is, does she see the value in it? Do I see the, if my ecosystem is not participating, why should I be the one that, should be involved in this, etc. So, based on these two parameters, we actually came up with 4 persona. And 2 of the personas what we decided that we were going to pursue, for the sake of this report. Because we felt that these are early adopters and kind of comfortable, not fully comfortable. We call them the cautious balancers, and the fence sitters. The whole idea behind having this persona is that, when we go into the market, and here kudos to the 3 private sector players on the stage. They were great partners. We tried the cautious balancers. The big insight was like what Dilip and everybody else has mentioned, which is as an individual user, the safety is a big concern, privacy is a big concern. And so what are the kind of nudges that are required to actually make her use the payment system more? When we looked at the fence sitters, these were, when we looked at most of them were actually small and medium entrepreneurs. It was not that they were not comfortable or familiar, they were actually using social apps, etc. They were fairly comfortable, but she really didn't see the business case, to actually use it. And so we worked with MobiKwik and PhonePe in looking at these women entrepreneurs, the small and the nano entrepreneurs, to see how we could make her nudge. And the kind of product that therefore we tried to test, a suggestion with NPCI, was the PPI, as far as merchant is concerned, the UPI for merchant piece. Both very interesting proposition. And for some of them it was actually the beta version, and there was so much to learn, just like what Nidhi was mentioning and what Dilip was mentioning earlier. It's not just the product piece, but equally the delivery. So the agent piece, and how do you therefore involve the ecosystem to ensure that the adoption becomes easier. You may have the best product, but then if you're not able to reach the woman in her context and understand her barrier, then she's not going to be using it. It may be the best product. And so therefore, the importance of the ecosystem and co-opting, the players in the ecosystem was equally a critical learning for us. And here I must commend NPCI, right? I mean, ecosystem can be at multiple levels. The biggest ecosystem, of course, people like NPCI, who actually have the appetite to look at such experiments, but at a systemic level, the ecosystem, the immediate ecosystem of the woman becomes even more critical. And so, how do we engage all at various levels to ensure that the adoption actually can be made by this 200 million? And when you're looking at the women entrepreneurs, we're talking about 3 million women just ready, to embrace the digital UPI for merchant app, literally. I mean, this is what we are hearing from the field. We spoke to 2,500 merchants over the last few months, and you'd be amazed at the readiness with which they were actually looking at adopting. So the market size is phenomenal. The opportunity and the business case is phenomenal. I think it's just really up to us, all of us have a role to play. And in this, we count ourselves as well as, ecosystem players, people like us, who can help bring the various players together to actually go to the woman in her context and offer appropriate products and services. So it's been phenomenal for us, and I must thank a phenomenal partnership with the three of them on the stage, who really helped them. And it was very different approaches with each one of them. Each one came with a very different approach, but at the end of it, all of them have uniformly embraced the opportunity, as was reiterated in the stage as well.
Thank you so much. They keep saying, right, you educate a woman and you end up educating the entire community of the society. But when I was having an offline conversation, I found, Nidhi giving us some excerpts around how you have to approach this segment very, very cautiously. It's not just about digitally acquiring them or sending them a communication and then they're clicking on it and then they're accepting it and getting into the ecosystem, right? In your interactions, what do you think are the important guardrails that need to be kept in mind before we, rush to onboard them into multiple products and segments?
I'll talk about three. And then top one, I would classify as reach out, onboard, and retain. Right? That's the theme. To reach out, you cannot, as like all of us called out, you cannot use traditional mechanisms of sending an agent. The women felt very, very comfortable when someone from the community who understands the challenges of the community, who has actually risen up and has actually taken into account all of those challenges, is actually helping them get onboarding. They feel very, very secure. They find a friend in that person to really give out all their details. When we were sending actually mail agents, we were finding that they were not very comfortable. They were actually sharing their mail counterparts, Aadhaar, KYC, and all of those details, right? So I think it's very important to have someone from the community to reach out to them, because that is the best way to get to them. And then the community person, which we operated with an NGO in Maharashtra, and we called them Sahyogis, right? These Sahyogis also understand, and the women is comfortable, so there's no fear of failure or there's no shame that, hey, I don't know it. That goes away. And then the Sahyogi really get her onboarded, help her do transactions. We found that if women have done 3 transactions, right, the likelihood of they gaining the confidence and staying on is very, very high. So Sahyogis are a very, very critical part. They have to come from the same community. For these women to be comfortable, they can reach out, they don't have the fear of being leveraged by someone or having any sort of social biases that they have against men. The second one I would say is, in this entire network, right, the Sahyogis play a very, very crucial role. Because if you look at Sahyogi's job, like a financial influencer from the community, that person is going door to door, which is, again has a little bit of a social bias for women to do a door-to-door job. They have a limited access because from a community standpoint, there will not be like a lot of these micro or small business owners, right? So they are limited. The success of this model is also very largely dependent on the success of Sahyogis. These Sahyogis will have to find value both in terms of their social status as well as their income status to come through for them to engage further and get to, these business owners onboarded onto the digital ecosystem. I think the third one that we would say and we identified is, don't rush them in. Don't try to cross-sell, upsell the moment you get them onboarded, because you have to understand the psychology of this segment. They are eager, they want to get onto this digital ecosystem, but if you rush them in by selling, all sorts of investment product, all sorts of insurance product, I think we may end up losing them because they have to gain confidence. They're just waiting one fraud and taking a step back. What we believe would work for this segment is, take the products that they can relate with. For example, gold investment, right? As low as 10 rupees digital gold investment. Gold, I guess every woman can relate to, and this segment definitely relates to. So you can start with things that they can relate, right? If you want to use, want to take them to use card, you can actually look out for, as like all of us discussed, like the wallet. Wallet has a prepaid card. You can start giving them out and get them addicted towards using the card when even the network is not there, they're not carrying the phone. I think we have to just play it step by step, curate the journey step by step for them, make them comfortable with the products, and then they will stick on. They will be there, and then the growth will get unlocked. So, just repeating 3 things. Community coming, like a community influencer coming from the same community. We need to figure out a right incentive model for the community influencer. It can be men, it can be women, but primarily women. The third one is go slow. Don't rush them into the digital ecosystem.
You talked about PPIs, right? So, and both Dilip and Bipin are here. So I just want to understand, why is PPI as a product attractive to this cohort, and which cohort do you think should be the one which way we should go and talk about PPIs more? And what is the unique proposition that you think they will buy into?
So maybe I'll go first. So thanks to RBI and thanks to NPCI, we have a product where basically PPI works over UPI. So we have our own version of it, which we call as Pocket UPI. Because what we realized is that a lot of people don't necessarily want to, and this is irrespective of whether they're men and women, want to expose their bank account directly for doing all the UPI transactions, for all 10 rupees, 20 rupees transactions. And probably it becomes even more challenging if the person is not the primary bank owner, like the woman is typically not the, if she's not the primary earner in the family, then she doesn't even have a bank account. Or even if she has a bank account, then maybe she doesn't receive the money in the bank account, because the bank account actually belongs to the male earning member. So we created this product called Pocket UPI, which is nothing but a wallet. So you can open a wallet with your Aadhaar and your credentials, and you can start loading it from anywhere. So I, as a male member, can transfer some money to the woman, let's say 5,000 rupees, and then she can actually use that 5,000 rupees across UPI, wherever, whether it's to transfer to somebody else, or scan and pay, which are the most popular use cases for, or even to pay bills, which are the most powerful use cases for UPI. So we've seen tremendous adoption for that, simply because psychologically, basically it reduces the kind of burden, the kind of risk of fraud, because you are just limiting the amount to a small amount. Your primary bank account is not getting exposed for digital transactions. And I'm sure that somewhere in the minds of the women, this is also playing, that if the bank account gets exposed, then it's a bigger burden for her, rather than the male earning member. So we found great adoption that as a dependent use case, even if not the primary wage earner, this Pocket UPI is a great use case. And I think NPCI has also recently announced this delegate payments, where basically you can give access to a secondary account, or a secondary person who can basically spend from your bank account or from your wallet. So you don't even need to open a wallet, you can actually just connect your mobile number, authenticate it, and connect it with the primary account, and set a limit like a 2,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees, and spend the money. Because these are small things, but like what Nidhi was saying, the beauty in digital transactions is you gain confidence the more you start using it. And like I think she said number of 3, but I would say the more frequently you use, the more longer period you use, the better chances that you will stick to it, because it's not about one-time usage.
I think PPI is really an amazing solution. So I couldn't complete my point on the 4 frictions that I see in the ecosystem that we need to solve for digital finance for women. One, I spoke about psychological, and that's a big one, and I want to come back to that. The second is physical, just the ability to travel to a bank branch in rural. It's very painful, time is of value. The third is education, and the fourth is monetary, right? So there are different frictions that we need to solve for, and I think PPI comes at the right time to solve for many of these. And I think the biggest one is psychological, and we cannot undermine the fact of psychological, because this is a woman who's saving that cash in a gullak in her home. She doesn't want her husband to know about it. This is a woman who's worried that it may get stolen, so she has her Didi, a Sahyogi in her community with whom she will put that money because she's just afraid of losing it. This is also a woman who, when she puts her money in a bank account and she gets her passbook and she realizes that 20 rupees has got deducted or 15 rupees has got deducted when she went to withdraw money from the bank account, she's worried. Ye kyun paisa atak gaya? Why did it get deducted? Hidden charges, right? Bank accounts getting frozen. Even people calling up, give me your OTP. She doesn't know whether to give it or not give it. So she's worried, and she hears stories about fraud happening in her community. So psychological is a huge thing. Here comes PPI. It's actually like her safe box, right? Where she exactly knows how much money goes in. She knows what she can do with it, where is it going, and therefore all these areas about help her to save that money, to invest in digital gold, maybe FD and all of that. I think UPI is a great capability because now QR acceptance has become ubiquitous even in villages. So her confidence of saying, I can go and pay myself, using PPI. So I think the PPI wallet is her safe haven. And I think it's an amazing start to digital finance for women in rural India. And I think with the UPI interoperability on PPI, I think it just opens up her ability to even accept money digitally. So we've heard women say, we run small businesses, because we don't want to transact with our bank account, we prefer to deal in cash. But if they can put a QR, which is linked to a PPI wallet, they can start receiving money in the wallet, it's in their control. And I think the fact of control, less fraud, simplicity and transparency, I think all of these lead into addressing quite a few of the friction points with PPI. So we're very excited with this product.
Thank you so much. Kalpana, I think you spoke about two cohorts which we should go after, right? And you did mention about cautious balancers and one more cohort. Can you just elaborate the big picture of this cohort and what do you think are the one or two quick win products that can be deployed for these cohorts?
So our research actually showed that for the cautious balancers, PPI is the best one because she is inherently worried about entering the digital financial system, and so therefore the points that all of them have mentioned, which is this safety, the fact that she's confidently able to because she's exposing very limited, and the fact that it's also privacy is very important for her.
Secretly able to see,
right? So the privacy piece is hypercritical, and not just in India. Our work around the globe this is a very important element for a woman. She does not want that. That's her private saving. And so that is again a very important element that that PPI is able to afford to give it to her, right? So for us that's a very interesting product and really her entry. We have to understand this 200 million is not just one segment. There are very different use cases of these 200 million because you have the employed, the self-employed, the housewives, the students. You have all of them in this 200 million. So having appropriate products and channel is important, but uniformly, the PPI is the first step or an entryway. Just to add to what Nidhi mentioned earlier, our research actually showed that when a woman, and the first 1 week of her introduction to something like a PPI or a merchant application, this is so crucial. If we are able to nudge her, so one is of course onboarding her, that's of course you have assisted onboarding, but I think the far larger piece that we have to be mindful of is how quickly can we make her familiar and use it. And our research seemed to indicate that we're talking about 3, etc. Our research indicated if she's actually made 5 transactions in the first week, it actually doubles her her chance of actually continuing usage of things like this or digital products. So that's important. So not just onboard, but actually nudge her to ensure that she actually uses the product. She does require nudging, but as you mentioned, I think you mentioned it earlier, which is that our research again across the globe, once the initial hand-holding is done, she takes off. She does not need you and me. And our research again unearths these, like what else can I do? There's appetite. We had people who had doing 10 transactions even, within the very first month. So that's as far as the cautious balances is concerned. The fence sitter is an interesting category because the fence sitter category is somebody who's familiar. She even probably has the app downloaded on her phone. She's comfortable, but however, she doesn't see the use case, right? And so for her, we felt that the UPI for merchant, that product of NPCI, is a very useful product because here again, 3 million women entrepreneurs, nano micro entrepreneurs ready, to use because 18% was the adoption in just the first 2 months of the work that we did with the medium and the small and the nano micro entrepreneurs, we had 18% adoption. That's humongous by any stretch of imagination. And so if you were to then apply it to the larger ecosystem, you're talking about 3 million opportunity there. So for this woman, again, UPI for merchant, right? The ability to use, of course, and this is where the work that we have done in the livelihood space, which is, we've done a lot of work with the Maharashtra State Rural Livelihood Mission, with MAVIM, with Bihar Jivika, etc. There are these women in the SHG groups that are looking for livelihood opportunities. And this very nicely fits into, and they could be, and we were having a conversation earlier, Nidhi and I, which is that, you don't even need to have them on your rolls. Even just you could try as a business, a freelance model, where you can enlist the support of these women, these community women, to help onboard, because UPI for merchant requires separate onboarding, and when you do the hand-holding, she's extremely comfortable. Of course, here a very important point around the ecosystem acceptance. While her customers, she should see the demand in her ecosystem where the customers are walking in, asking for this, but equally her supply chain. So, regulators here play a very key role. So could we have the regulators nudge the supply chain ecosystem to digitize more of the finance? Then automatically the trickle down will be that you will see it at the ground level in the tier 2 and tier 3 towns as well, where really the opportunity exists. So this is broadly how we see the usage of the
Fair point. Thank you so much. I think I would urge all of you to really go through this report, because while the railroad and the technology is there, it's important to curate products. Even things like, if safety is a problem, can I get into some kind of an insurance? To tell them that I'm giving you a cyber insurance for a particular period. If something goes wrong with your money, I will give you back. So these are products that you can curate to get them to a jump start. And once they get, that's really where growth is going to come from, right? Our markets are fairly saturated. And Bipin just spoke about UPI circle, right? The delegate payments. Delegate payments is nothing but you are authorizing a housewife or somebody in your family to use your money with or without authorization. So that could be a good starting point, because then you're wanting to spend somebody else's money on your own, and obviously you'll start putting your money also behind the same instrument and you'll start spending on your own. So these are great nudges. But I think this market, at least it was for me an eye-opener, because sometimes you just take it for granted. I mean, why would women not use? Is a question that I asked myself when I saw the topic, and I'm being very honest about it. But the report was really an eye-opener, so there's a lot to do. And I guess all of us put together will have to evangelize this. This requires a lot of hard work, roadshows, curated products. And I guess the report is a feeder for this thought, and a great step to get started with, to think in this direction and cover this 200 million population that we're talking about. Thank you very much. Any last 1 or 2 lines that you would like to add on, and then we can just summarize?
Yeah, I think I'll just want to conclude by saying, to the point that was mentioned around policy. I think just a couple of points there. One is, like I said, most of the women are part of self-help groups. The digitization of the SHG ecosystem, I think, has to be driven top-down from a policy ecosystem point of view. I think that's something I would really urge, and because the next 3 days is a lot of coming together of various stakeholders. I think if SHG digitization is a theme that can be picked up. The second one is, just reach. And I mentioned about physical access to a bank branch or an ATM point. And I think the question is, biometric-based payment systems, Aadhaar-enabled payment system, is actually become now ubiquitous, and women are being able to withdraw money from their bank account using Aadhaar-enabled payment system, but they're not able to deposit money in their bank account using Aadhaar-enabled payment system. So the second point I would make is, it's so important for the ecosystem to work together to make it very easy and accessible for women to their bank account. Because if UPI has to grow, women have to put money in the bank account. And for them to put money in the bank account, you have to make it easy for them to do it. And now it's not easy. They have to travel a distance to get to a bank branch. How we can make, cash deposit on AEPS work. So there are 2 takeaways, I would say: SHG digitization and making cash deposit work on AEPS. Make it accessible. Thank you.
I won't go into details, but I think I would say from startup point of view, well begun is 50% of the job done. This is an area, in my view, which was trying to be acknowledged and to be seen as an opportunity. So I would want to congratulate all of you, Women's World Bank as well as NPCI, to have taken this initiative, and we are very happy to participate in this. And I believe that if the ecosystem really understands the opportunity, the business opportunity also behind this, not just the social mission, but also the business opportunity that is there, then there's many good businesses that can be built.
I'll just add one thing. I think we all have spoken about the women not having their own accounts, not literally open to giving their own accounts. I think credit is a real problem for women. The reason they don't own an asset, it is either owned by one of the male members of their entire family, they don't have any collateral, the account most of the time is joint, they're not there in the digital ecosystem. And for the growth of these women, they really truly need credit. If I have to really look at it from an ecosystem standpoint, the way we underwrite these women has to literally change. It cannot be with the same lens that we underwrite every other business. The way every ecosystem player has to reach out to them for credit has to also change, because when it comes to credit, women have social biases when male agents reach out to them. I think it is there. It was also an eye-opener for me when I was discussing with the team that it is still there. For our world, it may sound like, hey, why? But there is a divide in our world, and we have to accept it and assume that yes, it is there and try to solve for it. So women do not feel comfortable asking for credit with male counterparts or male agents, right? So delivery of credit, how these small business women owners come into credit is extremely important. And just a proposal for NPCI and the ecosystem. From an ecosystem standpoint, it will be banks, it will be fintech players like us who will come into play. Banks needs to figure out credit line on UPI for these women, right? Because credit line on UPI is on UPI, it is accepted on QR, which we are getting them onboarded and getting used to, right? So the women will actually instantly understand how to use credit line on UPI. This is not a loan that is going and hitting her bank account, it is just a credit line. The second one is basically we as an ecosystem partners can be the distributors of these credit lines to these women who we are any which ways reaching out. So from an ecosystem standpoint, all of us will have to come together to unlock credit for this segment for their growth. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, this is the first step in terms of just shining the spotlight on the opportunity size, as we said, of 200 million. And payment is really the first step, the gateway. The larger opportunity really exists when both the regulator and through the regulator, the private sector will start looking at data at a gender disaggregated manner. For us to actually truly understand what the opportunity in each of our portfolio, and as an organization and as an ecosystem, we need to first have access to gender disaggregated data. And so therefore, the RBI's Financial Inclusion Index for right now is actually gender neutral. So the payment index right now is gender neutral. The minute we start looking at data in a disaggregated manner, that's going to clearly show us the opportunity, right? And so this is the pathway, right? The first step is the payments. Of course, you've got savings, you've got credit. I completely agree with you, Nidhi. Wealth, when the market is booming in this country, the women need to participate. And in fact, we even in this exercise, we also did a pilot with Lakshmi, which is a very unique platform, for just doing wealth for women. These are experiments that need to be encouraged. These are experiments that are out there, and we are very thankful to our donors. Like Gates Foundation is the one that actually have helped. So it's a question of regulators, donors, and of course all the private and the public sector entities all coming together to ensure that all of these initiatives don't just stay at a pilot stage. It's actually scalable. We see the business case of it, and therefore we scale it, not because it's just a good thing to do, but it's actually the right thing to do. And eventually all of this leading to women's economic empowerment. I think this is what is required right now.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today. I would request that you please download the report and have a look and curate products, and we will really have to see a marked progress in this. Thank you so much once again. Thanks for all the panelists.